Hey, just gonna do a quick audio check. We'll get started in 2 minutes if we're good. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I got you loud and clear.
All right, perfect. Yeah, give it 2 minutes. I'll start up right at when it hits five. We'll do a little intro. I'll read your bio from your Twitter page, and then we'll get started. I'll ask some questions, and we'll get going. Introduce yourself as well.
Hang on, what does my bio say?
Dedicated father and husband. My life passion is entrepreneurship, family, and adventure. V friend number 1 out of 20. Karen Camel.
Yeah, okay, that sounds all right. Yeah, I never spend a lot of time on my bios, um, so it's
All good. Give me 1 minute, and then we'll get started. Hey, looks like you were either accidentally or whatever dropped down to listener. Just I resent the co-host invite. Just accept it, and we'll get started. What's up, everyone? This is the Talking About Life podcast. I'm your host, Ian Lepkowski, Kowski on Instagram. Today, we are very grateful to have a guest with us. We're always grateful to have guests to keep the show running. Today's guest is Richo, I believe. Richo Matti. Correct me if I'm saying that incorrectly, but I believe it's Richo Matti. And the bio is dedicated father and husband. My life's passion is entrepreneurship, family, and adventure. V friend number 1 out of 20, Karen Camel. So the focus of the podcast is always the guest passions. It's great that the bio kind of like leads into that here for this particular guest. So entrepreneurship, family, and adventure will definitely be some of our topics. Rico, how are you doing tonight? And why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself as well?
really good. Thanks, Ian. Thanks. Um, it's actually a funny one if we start with the word Rico. It's a really funny one because it's pronounced Richo. Um, it's Richardson, abbreviated to Richo. That's always been it. But over the years, you get to basically adopt anything. So Rico was another one, and Richo. So yeah,
Do you have a
um,
preference?
uh, Richo, but Richo, but it's
Richo it
kind of
is.
like I was actually on a hangout hawk with Gary just last week, and it must be an American thing. I'm actually in Australia, so it was pronounced on there, and I just rolled with it. So I didn't really get the opportunity. But all good, mate. Yeah. How's your day going?
My day is going pretty well. I don't know if you've seen on my post, but I'm newly a father, so I'm incredibly excited about that. Right now my wife is taking care of the baby, gratefully, so we could do the podcast. But yeah, I'm just very happy to be a dad and get a family started and all that. So that's kind of where I'm at right now. What about you? How's your day going? And how are you doing in general?
Amazing. Yeah, that's cool. I'm really good, and I'm really grateful to be here now. I managed to have a listen through some of your other podcasts, and it was pretty cool just to check in on that. But probably to clear the air, like this is the first time we've really spoke, so it's nice to be a bit impromptu and learn a bit about each other in this manner. I see you, I know you because you're very active in Twitter, and there's a lot of value that you add. And like you say, with the recent child, I've seen a photo of that actually. Now you say it, and Yeah, it's I suppose the thing that really drawn me to yourself originally was um, obviously in my bio, as you alerted to, the V Friends, and being a in that community. And then I saw a lot of what you were doing with the V Minders when they kind of were wanting to push a positive message. And I see your a lot of your V2 little dab ins. You were kind of, you know, upgrading some of the content, which was really cool. So, did you end up did you end up ever seeing the V Friends video map that was created?
The V friend, sorry, say it one more time.
The V friend, sorry, the V miners video map. Did you ever get to stumble across that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I frequently talk to or I mean we haven't talked a lot in the new year. I've been busy with the baby, but when we were like very active with the V Minders, I was talking a lot to somewhat to Kevin, but a lot to Trevor, and we were kind of going back and forth, and I was like letting him know some of the things I was doing, tagging him. He was appreciative of it. He was sending me all the posts and the Medium stuff and like everything they were doing, and like yeah, I did see it. I read all the Medium stuff. I love the whole V Minders thing. um to me it's like, how do you add value to the world? One way is if you have tons of money, philanthropy, right? But I'm not in a place where I'm a millionaire and I still want to add value and help. What a low cost entry way to add value to the world, just to use my like amateurish or intermediate or whatever photo editing skills to throw a little edit on someone's photo, and it makes someone happy, adds a little smile to someone's day. So yeah, I really love that. And I keep up with pretty much everything that they do and have done. And yeah, I also I need to make some more V-minders for the new year. So I appreciate the reminder and the call out for that.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I think it is cool. Like I said to you, actually, well, it was just before we get on air when we were doing the sound check. It was just that, like my bio, I'm never big on bios. I know that you know, social. I don't want to say judgment, but social expectation is that people put this front out there, and you can write whatever you want to write in a bio. And for me, I just never really bought into it. I know it's something that you've kind of got to do because first impressions obviously do matter. But going back through that bio when you read it out and you said entrepreneurship, venture, um, I don't know if it said family guy or a father of two, um, and then yeah, the V friends, and I think it all comes together. Actually, it's not a bad little summary because sort of growing up, um, I I actually was funnily enough, it was the year 1985, and then in 19 I think it was that same year potentially, or not thereafter, that my father actually purchased two camels, and the story went there was going to be a race in Australia. It was the bicentennial race from Ayers Rock to the Gold Coast, which was I think over 3,200 kilometres, and he had a bit of history in sort of horses and training and riding some track work, and he decided he was going to train these two camels up and basically enter that race and potentially win it. And the long story of it is he prepped them all. He went out. A camel has a soft foot. It's not like a horse or a donkey where it's hooved. It's actually a soft pad. So coming through the desert, got a stone bruise. He was ahead in the first sort of one or two checkpoints, and then his compadre or his sort of friend at the time that had been obviously riding the other camel. He went on and they celebrated the win together. And since that day, we kind of grew up in adventure tourism, and it was for me things like that kind of become your normal. So taking camels to a fete or a festival and giving an experience to other people, it was kind of like it was my normal. But what I realized is that you know every single time we went somewhere, people's eyes lit up with the fact that camel, it gets up, it hops down, and as that
Real quick,
life progressed.
this was in
Yep,
Australia, you're saying?
it is in Australia.
Is that where
Yes,
you live
yeah.
now?
So, yeah, Central Queensland was the original. was the original kind of sort of birthing place. And then I'm actually in Gold Coast at the moment. I've been residing here for the last 2 years.
Nice. Now, I've never
Yeah,
heard of camel racing before. I that's kind of like
yeah.
super interesting to me. Is that like big in Australia?
Look, it's it's not big. It happens. So that particular race was a one-off event that was kind of created by some of the sheiks. Um, so yeah, it was kind of a bit of an early experiment, and since then, camel racing in Australia basically the predominant race is a 400-meter sprint, which is completely different to the Emirates, where they have, or Dubai, they have, 10-kilometer races. So yeah, it's a novelty event here.
And it's like there's deserts in Australia, like where they're racing.
No, they're more so rural regional towns that are just out from the hustle and bustle. So, and they use it as a bit of a marketing. Um, it's kind of like an event, so it attracts a crowd. People will come out from the sort of the surrounding areas and come to watch the camel races. We've got there's it first sort of started for me back in 2000. Well, actually, it was before that, but one of the first big ones was the Booyah Desert Sands 2000. We had a camel win that one called Bullamakanka, and it's just something that's always been a part of my life, which was funny actually. Then leading into V Friends, because I do have the caring camel. Um, that's the camels that we're talking about are the dromedary camel, which is a one hump. It's a little bit of a fact there for everybody, and the Bactrian camel is actually the two hump one, which is the one that Gary has drawn. Another little fun fact in the Hawk session, it was a question that took me over 12 months to get asked to Gary, and he basically confirmed that the reason he drew the two hump camel was just that's what he draws. It was it's just how he sees a camel. So that was pretty funny.
Yeah, I wasn't necessarily aware of the differences of types of camels between one and two humps either. I'm not necessarily surprised that Gary wasn't. Um,
No, neither was I.
Let me ask you this: do you know how fast camels run?
Yeah, they can get up to about 60 kilometers an hour at full speed, and if they want to maintain pace over distance, they can kind of if they've been trained correctly, they can sort of go between 40 to 50 kilometers an hour over a distance. But in the sprints, they get up to about that 60. Um, some might be able to nudge past it, but yeah, we've clocked them at that, and that's it's moving. So the story of what wins out of a horse and a camel, like a horse will have the camel over the short distance, but eventually the horse will break down and the camel will get the money at the end of the day.
I never knew camels could
Just
run that fast. It's like funny, like my image of camels is, from I guess Hollywood in the movies, and it's always like a scene where people are very slowly, on the camels, like moving through the desert. It's
yeah,
interesting to me, like it's just very interesting to me to hear that one, there's camel races, and two, that's how fucking fast they could actually go. Like, I don't know, it's pretty cool.
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Oh, look, I could tell you 100 different fun facts about camels. It's something that a lot of people, don't really know, and there's a lot of history with camels. Like, obviously here in Australia, they're introduced. I believe they came from the Canary Islands, and then they were used by our early explorers as ships of the desert to cart um, all the stock and the supplies, and they were able to open up. Because when you said about Australia having deserts, it's like Australia is a desert. It's the whole the whole center of Australia is desert, so it's only the coastlines that actually have, I suppose, some sort of like rainforest and greenery. And yeah, that's
Yeah, it's all
That's a bit
coming
about the
back to me now
camels.
from the movie Kangaroo Jack. Right, of course. They were in the desert for a large portion of that movie. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, yeah. My son actually just watched it yesterday again. It was funny. He just said to me yesterday. He goes, "Dad, um, yeah." He just literally watched it yesterday, which is pretty funny.
It.
So so yeah, the I don't know if you want to kind of continue down. Like I was kind of just sort of talking about, you know, story and a bit of like I was sort of trying to connect through from like what you said about, you know, the value that you add to a community through what you have in front of you and what you're able to do. I was interested to ask you because, like, is there a point in your life where you did flip the switch from thinking for yourself and what you want to get out of life, like maybe trying to earn a certain amount of money or trying to have a certain career or trying to have things to flip it and maybe look at it like, you know, maybe more your purpose is how much value you can add and bring and what that looks like. Is there a moment that,
Um,
or is that just something you've grown into?
I don't know if there's a moment, but there's definitely like moments, right? Um, the
Yeah.
best way I think I could answer it is I started my life in a place where I felt like I kind of had like a rough childhood. Other people definitely had, rougher situations in life, even people I've talked to on the podcast, that kind of thing. So it's not like a pity me kind of thing, but it's just, my parents got divorced when I was like around 3 years old. I was in therapy a lot. I had like emotional issues, that type of thing. For a long time, I was like angry, blamed my parents type of thing. But I was always very curious about like the world and like what's real, what's not real, like what's spirituality and God and religion and what is right and what is wrong and like, how do you act in the world? What should you do? Like, is evil real? Is good real? Are there consequences for things? So lifelong I've kind of had like a back and forth with that. But there was a point where I was atheistic. I felt like there is no greater force or anything. I felt like it was illogical. That was, where I was at that point in life. And at that point, I felt like, okay, like, kind of anything you kind of get away with is, fine, so to speak. So yeah, I've had a point in my life where I was actually almost the opposite in some ways of the person I was now. I had a point where I had, issues with drugs. I did some stealing and, things I'm not proud of and that type of thing. Um,
Mm,
and then at some point, like, you know, through all these journeys, like I went to like Christian youth camp to try to learn about Christianity. In college, I went to Israel on birthright because I'm also like part of my family's Jewish, which is like a funny thing too, because if you're Jewish, you're not technically Jewish if your mom's not, and my dad is Jewish, so my mom's not. So technically, like quote unquote hardcore Jews or Orthodox Jews wouldn't consider me a Jew, but in America it's not as strict. So and especially with birthright, it's like they're very loose. Anyone in your heritage. So I went through that. I experienced that. I also like joined this like it just sound funny, but I joined a group of monks from India a little bit. Like kind of time like while I was in college and learned about like their religion and ideas from India. And at some point through going through all these religions, I felt like, okay, like maybe there is something. Like they're all talking about something. There's all these differences, but what is the same about all the religions? Like there seems to be some sort of pattern or commonality. And through all of it, I don't know when the exact point was that it flipped, but at some point karma was a concept that I came to believe. And energy and like energy coming back to you and all these types of things. So I started to believe like there is no such thing as getting away with it, quote unquote, so to speak. I started to believe that, you know, in some way it will come back to you negatively. And I like to ponder things from all angles, which is funny. That's one of the V friends, but
yeah.
so let's say I'm wrong. Like let's say I'm wrong about karma. It's not something you could prove, right? It's something I've chosen to believe. I also kind of came to a point where I realized, like, whether karma or not is real, like, when I was doing these bad things and like thinking and acting this certain way, the type of people I chose to associate with, like when I was stealing, I was hanging out with other people who would steal. And that's like the people I attracted. And it's like, okay, whether it's energy or psychology, I really did see the effects of my mindset having a negative impact on me. And I wasn't getting quote unquote away with things. I was living like this life that, it's not really a life that you would probably want to live, kind of thing. Um, so
Yeah.
then that's so yeah. So I don't know when exactly it was, but then I started to believe, okay, like putting out good into the world, like is the best thing for me. So it's like it's funny because it's another. It's funny you asked me this. This is one of the topics I think about a lot, like personally. Um, but people talk about being selfless. I personally don't believe in the concept of selflessness. It's a semantics thing. I don't have to go too deep into it, but just like kind of shorten it. Selfless, like you are the self. Like I don't think you could do anything selfless because it would have to be without you. You'd be dead. There's no selfless. Like, so I think everything you do is for yourself. So even when you do good things, it's like if it felt horrible, you wouldn't do it. Some aspect of everything is selfish. But I came to realize
Mm.
that m- you can tie your own selfishness in with cooperation. Like those are not mutually exclusive. Like you could get to a place where you satisfy your own happiness and what you need for yourself, and actually you need to do that. It's not only you can, like it's you can't help other people if you're not somewhat selfish to take care of yourself and get yourself to a point where you're stable and can help others. So it's like, no, it's on some level good to be selfish, but like also you could be selfishly cooperative and empathetic and realize like, yeah, I want to do good things because it's good for me, but it's also good for other people. And personally, some people go, oh well, are you good or bad person? Are you like, I don't think there's a problem morally with me thinking I'm doing everything that's best for me and best for the world at the same time. That's my conclusion. Sorry, that was long,
Yeah.
but it's
No,
I
it's
wanted
yeah. I kind of love the depth that sits within. I love the depth that sits within that, and I feel I feel something that I love to talk to, and this is when I say to talk to, it's talk to myself because I don't I don't live a very social life. Like I've kind of been cautious. I love the aspect of social media, the fact that it connects people and it does what it does, but there's also the element of just the unauthenticity of some of what people, like I said before, what they share on their bio, what they try to present. And I think so for me, yeah, some of these words, when we're navigating life, like you say, it's like contradiction is a word that I love, and also normal. So I feel like what is normal is a really good question, and yeah, the just the general contradiction of what is, like you say, what is a good person, or like a good person could be this or it could be that, and they could all contradict each other. So I think it's fascinating the depth that we can go in when a question like that's asked. So and I was genuinely interested in it because for me, I see in the world, I see people, like you see people that have per se made it, or they've created some sort of success or some sort of thing for themselves, and then I look at it, and some of them will have a definite line where they know this day here back in 2001 on November 2nd at 8:36 a.m. this moment changed my life, and I feel like I don't have that myself. And yeah, for me, it's kind of more so like what you said. There's a number of things that progressively happen, and neither's right or wrong. I believe it's just interesting how we all, yeah, how we all kind of navigate. And something actually that sticks with me. This is the good one. This is one of my favorites. Um, you only know what you know, and you don't know what you don't know. And I think that one that one brings me back all the time where, you know, somebody might be a road rage situation and it's like you don't know what happened to that person leading up to that. You don't know what their events were. That's on an emotional human level. And then there's other things in the world. We're looking at a lot of fact checking, a lot of all these things now. It's like,
Real quick, you
well,
also
we
don't
only
know if they
know,
have like a gun, if they're mentally stable, if they're gonna like stab you or
yeah,
shoot you, or like if they're gonna get violent, like, so yeah,
yeah,
there's a lot of things.
so many unknowns. Yep, so many unknowns. You didn't know much about the difference between a one hump camel and a two hump camel, and it's like you don't know that, and I know things that you don't know, and like that's where what I'm trying to get at as well is, I suppose, to a degree, judgment in the world of like, yeah, people. It's an interesting dynamic and like psychology of how we interact, what we take on board from others. I'm fascinated by it, but I don't dive too deep into it because I kind of feel that awareness is okay, but I have to be true to just living an active, you know, daily life that keeps me a bit more present than trying to go too deep because it just naturally
To
happens
clarify,
anyway.
too deep
So.
into what?
Oh, just too deep into trying to understand the world. Like you spoke on religion before. Religion's a fantastic example of like the thing that that kind of that gets me with a religion is um, the the process of what I understand that a lot of there's multiple religions in the world. I think we can agree on that, and I see that predominantly the core value is to be kind, um, you know, to give love and respect, and it's genuinely a pretty harmonious kind of way of life, and a respect to a creator and or a god, and it's just within that because people need to be right or wrong that all of those core values kind of go out the window because it's now not about the core values, it's about the intricate detail that different religions don't agree on. And I feel um, you know, just there's hundreds of people, thousands of people across the world that have their own right or wrong within this topic, and
And you're saying
it's
what kind of like maybe like a despair in that people like, I don't know, go so opposite, like kind of miss the message, like, and not just miss it, but literally like do the opposite kind of thing.
well, yeah, because they're trying to they're not then instead of, you know, like a respect or an agreement of difference, they fight. You know, it's like it's it's proven in society how it happens. But for me, you went through saying about atheists. Like my parents grew up as sort of Christian, and my grandparents. But then I went to a couple of Sunday schools, and I appreciate the fact that there's a greater being in the world, and I just don't have a decision. I'm very respectful and very interested to understand other people's like, you know, journeys and learnings, and but for me to say that, you know, Christian is absolutely right, or Muslim or Hindu or like even like Buddhism, it's not. I don't believe, from what I understand, I don't believe it's classed as a religion. It's more of a philosophical way of life. You know, I just yeah, but I'm greatly interested. Like I'm greatly interested in how we can have such a core positive message, and yet it gets dispersed because is it am I right on that? Like, is it the fact that people need to be right or wrong? Is that kind of where it gets lost with the
Well, yeah, so okay, one thing I did want to clarify, but what you were saying too, it's not everybody. Like, and I just want that to be like a strong point because and largely I agree with what you're saying, but I just want to kind of clarify this first, and any listeners, that kind of thing. Um, I tend to try to be as all inclusive as possible, but also authentic. Um, but my experience is, despite like 100% agreeing that like what you're saying is true for I don't know what percentage of people, I've also found that
Mm,
there's a large community, and I don't know which one's more. You know what I mean? I don't know if large is 20%, and that's just my
yeah.
experience. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't want to skew it. Um, but at
No.
least in my own personal experience, and like I said, like you said, you didn't want to go too deep. I became all consumed with this. Like it literally affected my mental health, trying to figure out God and the world and
Yeah.
religion. Um,
Yeah.
you know, my thing is, one of the things that I learned to like and respect and love about religion as I went through different communities of religion is that for a lot of people, again, I don't know the percentage, but for a lot of people in my experience, it was a really positive influence in their life. It gave people a certain set of
100%.
morals. They're not arguing with other people. They're not like extremists. They're not the people who like are constantly, on Facebook, like having this like negative debating type thing. Um, they're
Yep.
people that like, despite being part of a religion, they, accept other religions. They're quote unquote normal people to
Yeah.
me. Or I don't, you're right. You said you don't know what normal is, right? I agree. But they're positive people. They're good people. Like, so I like religion for people who it has that effect for, whether I agree with their like, who cares? Like, to me, who cares? I'm a results driven guy,
100%.
and I love that part of religion where it does work for people, and it does give them morals, and it does give them a positive focus. It does give them hope in dark times, and like, who the fuck am I to
Yep.
take that away from them? Now, going back to
100%.
your point, that's why, like, I can't pick a particular religion, or that's part of it. There's many reasons, but I agree. Like, there's also this other part where it's like, what the fuck, like what, like, yeah, like that is the question, what percentage of people
Yep.
is it bad for?
Yep.
And if it's 80-20, then like, if
Yep.
you're a good person, then is religion a good thing or a bad thing? Like, I don't want to insult anyone's religion, but right, like, if it
Yeah.
causes more conflict than it doesn't, what's,
Yeah.
what do you do about that? Like, and I think,
Well,
without being disrespectful
yeah.
to anyone, I think that's a totally valid question for like a good-hearted person to ask.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm glad you kind of brought it up that way because I didn't even kind of see it that way, that it was potentially presented that way, where I'm even questioning if it's good or bad because I I don't like I support an atheist. I support like any person of any religious denominator if they're I mean if their mindset is to, for me personally, only if their mindset is to do well in the world and to improve themselves and to support people around them. And genuinely speaking, that's what I see most religions or ways of life to lead to. It was only that when we take a step back and ponder it from all angles, and you sit outside of a particular one, and then you sit into another one and have that different perspective, like, not it's not everybody, but I do know that there's certain people that don't have that ability to potentially do that. And I think if we all just gave each other a bit more understanding of what we don't know, and it's like, everybody had a different upbringing. I know that, like you said, different potentially, youth that have different experiences. Um, you know, Sometimes it's like this: they might either find nature, they might find a religion, or they might find a gang or something like that nature where they feel. And then for me, like personally, it's kind of like I kind of you know I belong in the world, but it's like we don't. So there's also people that don't need, as long as we know that we exist and we're supported by the world, then sort of, there's contentment in that too. And trying to, I think this is where it's at for me, which is what the best part is the V-Friends community actually also is something that's um, connected and created values around people globally that can relate on certain levels, and that's an amazing thing that we really, well, I haven't personally experienced it in my previous few decades. So yeah, I think there's a lot of relativity in everything. And look, it's funny that we're even talking about this topic, because it's not a topic that I tend to talk on. I just think it's interesting. I'm just and
No, I think it's interesting as well. And I mean, this is as much like for you as it is for me kind of thing. Like I said, it's free flow. It's whatever, direction it wants to go. And it's about passion. So, I'm passionate about this. If you don't talk about it, usually that's fine. But, to me, it's like, don't feel like you're breaking any rules kind of thing. There aren't really any rules. One thing I do want to say though, is I feel like I, not intentionally, but like didn't answer your question. You did ask me like, what do I think is the reason for the people who kind of go the total opposite way and miss the message. Um, I think there's like a lot of reasons, right? I think there's a lot of different ways to answer that question. I think you could write like, a 20-page essay on that, answering that question. Um, not to oversimplify, but I think at all levels, there's a certain duality in the universe. And I think all the other larger emotions do stem from love and fear. I think every emotion that's not love or fear is a derivative of love and fear. It's just that's a belief I've come to have. Um, and I think it's fear. It's some version of fear. Like fear is what creates hate. Fear is what creates like anger and violence. It's this like either subconscious or
mm,
conscious like deep level of fear within people that drives people to this kind of primal level where it's like fight or flight, right? Like that's what fear does. Fear puts you in kind of like a fight or flight response. Um,
yeah,
so that's what it is. Like
and uncertainty, yeah, fear and uncertainty.
yeah. And then the other thing I would say too, on top of fear, is that it's generational kind of indoctrination. I don't know if that sounds too heavy of a word, or you grow up with
Yeah,
something, and people give you this mindset, they give you this philosophy, they give you this fear, and you inherit it. And if that's how you grew up,
yeah,
some people just inherit what they grew up with. Now some people go to the internet and learn other stuff and reject it, but it's not
mm,
abnormal for people to just grow up with what they grow up with and be that.
yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, for certain. And you know what? I met somebody, geez, a couple of weeks back, or end of last year, December 2022, and um, yeah, it was somebody that like he had a really core upbringing of religion, and it serves him, very well. And I mean, I kind of like respect and like, give, like, it just doesn't, what I'm trying to say is, it like, it kind of doesn't change me for how I perceive somebody, whether they are, 100% religious, or have no inkling for it, or have semi partial of it. It doesn't alter me. I'm just purely interested in the dynamic of the way, as human beings, we interact with each other. And I do see a core element of that. Um, it is based off what happened, um, centuries ago. And yeah, like you said,
Right,
you
but
can
I'll also
every
let me also just point this out. Um, I've come to I because I think a lot of these same things you do, and I do go deep with these things. I've come to
cool.
think like that there's a point past what you're saying where it's
Yep.
actually not even religion. Um,
Yep.
it's literally the concept of the other, like in general. Like it's the idea like where you stop seeing people as part of your group, as part of your tribe, as part of your race, as part of
Mm.
your family, and it's otherism in general. And if you want to go a little bit like more specific than that, because that's kind of broad, it's tribalism. So even without religion, like people people have flipped fucking cars over after a sporting event, like just because that's their tribe and they got all fired up and mob mentality
Yes.
think. So even without religion, it is part of I think the human condition for people to find these tribal-ish kind of groups and then like have these like tribal wars. Um, I think it's something humans have to get past at some point as a race, and we have to find that cooperation is better. Like I said, like find that you can be selfish, satisfy all your needs, but cooperate and not have to have these
Mm.
tribal wars. But I don't think it's
Yeah.
just religion. I think it's even if all religions
No.
disappeared, we would just find some other fucking way to group ourselves and tribe up and argue
Yeah.
and be fans and
Yeah. Yeah.
that type of shit.
100%. Are you familiar with Lost? I was a bit slow on the uptake because I never really, you know, this series Lost?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I love.
Yeah, yeah. I never really get into them because I don't like to be consumed. However, it was just the school holidays recently, and it was kind of like something. It was on, and I've sort of picked up a few things there, and it's the same thing like when you mentioned tribes, and it's just so funny when we what's the word? There's a word for it where we have assumptions, you know, like if we look at somebody and something happens, it's like we're very quick to assume that this was done with a certain intent or something
Well, it's
along
like a
those
bias or
lines.
prejudice. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, and maybe it's perceived from things that this person's done in the past, and that's what brings us, you know, we only know what we know, and we don't know what we don't know, and we only know that he's, you know, he or she has done this before, and therefore we're bringing this. But I just feel at some point in the future, like this truth as a spoken word um, becomes very relevant. I mean, it's always been relevant, but it's the one thing that kind of is to yeah to miss out. And actually, interesting on this, I do see a lot of memes, and I do follow a few different kind of creators that are, you know, sharing more of a positive philosophical message. But I do see a couple more these days, which I haven't seen previously. And one of the dot points is don't share everything with people about yourself. And it's actually tweaked my attention a couple of times because I was kind of more so getting to a point where just be, you know, just be honest and just be transparent and just be truthful. And then like all of the other messaging within what they're kind of putting forward, I kind of agree with. And then I see that one, and then I'm like, okay, so um, I'm interested by that. Like I understand that there's some things that, you know, people don't want to share. Maybe it's for private reasons of that there's other people in the world that can you know, maybe leverage that or do things. But have you seen that yourself? Have you seen that kind of message? Are you familiar with what I'm mentioning? Or
Yeah, of course. Or I don't know, of course, but yes, I am. I would think the wisdom in that, or my takeaway from that, is I've learned a similar lesson, or I've also kind of gone through that thought process. Where I ended up with that is, um, it's about also the people you keep in your circle. So if you have people around you who don't have the kind of same entrepreneurial drive and spirit you have, and they don't have big ambitions and big vision, and they can't picture themselves winning the way you're trying to picture yourself winning, it comes off maybe as arrogant to them, or again, it's like some sort of fear-based thing, or like they're jealous, or they think, on some level, like they don't believe in you, but they're also like, why don't I believe in myself? Like that kind of thing. It's like these unconscious biases and these like unconscious emotions. So if you get to a point where your circle's very tight and you know who your core people are, who are also entrepreneurial and positive, then yeah, then that's when you could follow the message of be authentic, and you could share things with people. Because what happens when two people who imagine themselves winning meet is it's very easy for them to kind of imagine each other winning. It's like, oh, you're imagining yourself winning? Oh, dude, dope. Like I'm imagining myself winning, and like maybe like we could put our imaginations together and somehow help each other to win. Like,
yeah,
because both believe. But if you don't see yourself winning, that's like I think the people who end up talking shit, or the haters, or they're like
yeah,
telling you they don't believe in you, or they think you're dreaming too big, kind of thing.
yeah,
One thing I want to do right here is just transition a little bit, because I want to get to know a little bit more about you as well. Um, in regards to entrepreneurship, because that's something I'm curious about. You know, passion is entrepreneurship. And by the way, I think it's funny that you said you don't really do the bio or didn't pay attention. I think you have a perfect bio. But entrepreneurship, you say, is a passion. What sort of entrepreneurship do you do? Like, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, cool. I actually think it's a good lead in what we were just talking about because I think it's very relative. What is entrepreneurship? What is a business owner? I have a fair bit of kind of that I believe different depth on some of this, and the psychological element of it is what we just spoke about. Like what do you share with people? And sometimes what we're told is to keep, and that comes to upbringing, which we've spoke about. It's like keep your ideas to yourself. Don't go telling anyone that they'll steal it, and all of that. Then I also see a flip side of that where people say your idea is worth nothing. It's all about the action and execution, and that's true. But I disagree with the fact that it's worth nothing. That's to me that's a fraud because it is worth something. It's just not worth. It's worth a lot, but it gets its value once it's executed and once it's implemented. So, but it's definitely not worth nothing. And Yeah, I feel like it's interesting to where you get to the point where you can break down the barriers of what information you withhold and how you build to a point where you feel you can connect with potential business partners in a you know safe framework that you can be honest enough that then you can share and both move forward. And I think that's something that we've missed in business, the empathy and the shared passion. And for me, what I sort of tend to do now is anybody that I choose to work with moving forward, it comes down to first and foremost who they are as a human being, their shared passions and purposes, and um, obviously skill sets are very relative and very important, but unless there's a shared sort of human connection as to what that core value or core belief is. It just for me, I think it becomes a little bit more. Just doesn't feel as natural, and that's the hardest part. That's got me to where I am now. Is finding, like you said, you might share big ideas, you might share big visions, and you might be feeling that, like people are jealous, people are this, people are that. And I don't like to think that way, even though, you can probably find the honest truth in it, that is, where a lot of it comes from. And it might not be intentional. But, but yeah, my entrepreneurship at the moment, I had a number of different startups. Um, I basically continue to try to innovate. I have been toying with the concept of not being a CEO, but more of a innovative thought leader, and just kind of questioning, finding solutions, and then trying to implement that to create a product that can be well served for not only our generation but
Is there like
generation.
is there like a main project, or like what are you working on right now?
Yeah, so there is. So the main project right now is Vidimaps. It's not public, and so I actually was going to share you a link, and just as a bit of a fun take on it, for yourself. But I can probably maybe navigate that in the background. But yeah, it's a look. It's a digital storytellers platform. It basically comes back to a lot of what I've grown up, what I've seen, what I've reflected on, and there's different messages. Some of these are shared by Gary V himself. Some of them are shared by yourself and a lot of other people, where the core being of what I see right now is, like I said, authenticity, I love the connection of the world. I love the fact of the social connection that social media has brought to us. I love what it does for potentially some of the elements of small business. And basically, with Vidimaps, we've kind of bundled that up together to create a product that enables people to connect, share experiences, tell their story via digital means, and also that story can be either a private story or it can be like a public story, which can be shared. Now, um, I don't want to go into too much depth into it. It's probably not 100% the space, but yeah, it's something I'm
Yeah,
100%
don't
super
feel pushed to
passionate.
overshare anything. It's just you know,
Yeah,
tell people. And by the way, just a reminder on time. We have about 12 minutes left. Usually in the last like 10 minutes, 5 minutes, whatever or so, I just give the guest a chance to like, kind of like super shill if you want to call it, or if there is something that you're working on that you do want to talk about, or you have something that's a product that's live, or you want to throw out a link, or whatever, post it on the on here, whatever kind of thing. Like I always say like it's the point at like if you're on like Jimmy Fallon or something, and your book coming out, you go, oh, my book's coming, the interview, oh, the book's coming out this date, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
if you have anything like that, feel free to do that. And then if not, you obviously no pressure. Like I said, free
yeah.
flow. It's whatever you want to talk about for the last.
Yeah, cool. No, like we will get to that. I think we'll build up to that. I, I just, I feel like yeah, we'll definitely move forward to that at some point. I don't need to share anything link wise, sort of now, but definitely happy to kind of talk to the world and share that vision of what I see because it's like what we spoke. If we don't, if you get to a point and you do know that like right now you are in a great position and the work's been done and what you've been working towards and your different beliefs and as an entrepreneur you hit your head up against the wall quite a few times and it's about resilience and perseverance and certainly passion. And for me, I was kind of dead in the water where you kept trying to push the envelope, and it wasn't always, but it was kind of the main message from the outside was money. And for me, in the end, it wasn't money that was motivating me. It was how I felt, and and how I felt was predominantly connected by what I could eventually do for others. Like I go back to taking people for camel rides. It's something so small, but when you put someone on that hasn't had an experience and you see a kid go from crying because they're scared to buggery of this massive big camel that could just like there's just so much fear in some of them, and then they hop on and then they just start laughing and their whole face lights up. You're like, wow, that's pretty powerful, and that happens you know often. And yeah, and then so through small business, I probably can just share a bit of that passion. And what I see was that the businesses, and this might connect with some people, and at the end of the day, it's about trying to, as we've discussed, find connection with people that can be meaningful moving forward. And for me, it's about then helping other people to document, share their stories, and if we can do that through what we've been developing, then that would ultimately, you know, uh, for me, be a success. So, hey mate, how are you? Just had a
Yeah,
local.
something to your point, and this is I think maybe a little bit of a harsh perspective, but again, pondering from all angles. I once heard a quote or a perspective that said, "There's no such thing as friendships. There's only individuals with mutual shared interests." And
Yeah, cool.
that's like I don't not believe in friendship. You know what I mean? Like I have tons of friends,
Yeah,
but like
yeah,
if you're willing to let yourself go there philosophically, oh, interesting. Like, it's not saying you don't have any friends. It's saying the friends you do have and what a friendship is in general isn't whatever you thought it was. Or like, it's saying like it's saying when it says there is no such thing as friendship, it's saying people have the wrong idea about friendship. People think of friendship is this like standalone concept and it has like some other definition, but it's saying really the true definition, the true definition of friendship or a good friendship or a positive friendship is just two people that have a strong mutual interest, and that's it.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
and
yeah. And the
I
word,
think on some level that's almost undeniable, totally true.
yeah, yeah, I feel it, and I think that that kind of comes into a word you used previously, which was tribe, and I see that's a marketing word that's being sort of, targeted at the moment or thrown around to create community. They've kind of called them tribes, and it is. It's just a likening of some interest. Like let's look at some niches. Like we've got people that like I could go through a heap of them, but it might be someone that's interested in bird watching, something like that, or it might be somebody that loves to free dive. It might be someone that surfs. It might be um, like there's a whole different variety of these people, and part of that is to enable these people to connect and share and document and create these experiences moving forward. And I'm probably not going into a lot of depth there because I feel at some point we will do a more visual presentation, and that'll be kind of upcoming. But the point of probably what I could say right now is that if there is somebody that has a passion for creation, they they love to document and create, then certainly I'm available to be able to try to work with them, and we will be in the coming kind of weeks or months looking to put together like a like an early adopter kind of situation, and I think we're pretty well ready for that. But it's just nothing I've announced, so you've probably got a bit of a hot take on that, and yeah, that's really it, sort of from me. I'd love to uh, probably share more, but I think as far as this goes, it's probably pretty good.
Yeah, I'll agree. Yeah, it's 5:55. Nice little V Friends little plug. The fives reminder there. 5 minutes
Yeah,
also in our interview here. But yeah, I agree with you. Little just echo what you just said. Little alpha call here. If you are listening and you've made it this far in the podcast, thank you for listening. And there's a little opportunity for you if you're someone who's a creator and you're positive, and you want to, help the world and, do
yeah,
something good. um, you know, reach out to sorry, it's Richo, right?
Richo, yeah, yeah.
Richo, I'm so sorry. It's
It's okay.
Richo.eth. Reach out to reach out to Richo. It's funny. Um, yeah, and this major opportunity. And yeah, Richo, just so you know, myself personally, um,
Yeah,
I do have a day job kind of thing. Right now I'm on paternity leave, so I have like lots of free time, which is sweet. But
all
eventually I'll
right.
go back to kind of my regular schedule. But outside of my regular schedule, I'm always, looking to create and be entrepreneurial and kind of collaborate with people and kind of
Yep.
still find exactly, what my niche is or place or, what my legacy kind of is. But, it's going to be doing things brick by brick, and, any opportunity I have, I'm always open to it. So, definitely consider me an option.
Well, here, let's. We still got that little bit of time. Let me see if I can. It'll either work or it won't work. I'll see if I can paste you this. Let's see if it's going to work. Paste. Can you open that link?
You messaged it to me?
No, it said message. Oh, yep, it's sent. Yep, cool. And all I want you to do is just say, so this is a private message that I've just sent you this link, and it is to uh, a VidiMap concept where we collected the the V miners. It hasn't been publicly shared, but I just wanted to see if you've seen that maybe through your talkings with Trevor. It's just a personal
Yeah,
interest, and it might create
yeah,
some
you were asking me
curiosity as
that
well.
before. I definitely I've seen this. I love it. I think it's amazing. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, cool. All right. And do you get you got a run in there somewhere?
Say it again.
Have you got? I was going to find out where you were within that because I know that a lot of your what we spoke earlier about your creative kind of like additions of the V2s, like a lot of them, created a bit more of that. What's the word? Like feeling. It just created a bit more substance.
Well,
So yeah, pizzazz. Yeah. No, cool, awesome. So yeah, very good, mate. I just wanted to finish off with that. I'm grateful that you've been able to see that and experience that. So yeah, looking forward to being able to share it with a few more others in the future.
yeah, I think I think everybody should take a look at it. Like I said, V Minders is a great movement. Um, Definitely got to get back on my grind, making some V Minders for the new year. But yeah, I love it. I love the positivity. I love all these contributions.
Yeah, yeah, cool, awesome. All right, no worries. Thanks, Ian. Appreciate your time, and I look forward to talking more in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you know,
I'll let you wrap.
I'm a little bit new, I guess, ish to the podcast. I've been doing it a few months. So, last question I'll ask you here in the last couple minutes. You did say you listened to a couple or some of them. What feedback, if anything, could you offer to me? Any positives, negatives? I actually always like prefer negative feedback. People are always scared to give that, but whatever you feel comfortable, what feedback could you give?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it is what it is. I think from what you're doing, it was it's kind of nice to have an agenda that has no agenda. Like I feel like that's okay, and I can honestly say that that's exactly what it was because from our dealings, like we've never spoke before, we never had questions identified, and I didn't really. There was actually stuff that I had in my mind that I would have loved to have shared, and going back now when you talked about entrepreneurship, there was quite a bit of stuff that I really predominantly would have loved to have spoke on, but that's more about me being green as well. But mate, I think you're doing a great job. And maybe, yeah, I'm not sure. I don't think there's too much. I think it's good. I think for me, if I was to do it again, I'd love to. Maybe there's two segments. Maybe there's a segment where you keep this one alive because I think it's got value, and then maybe there's another way where if someone like myself comes on here and has an epiphany and thinks, you know what, this was actually a good chat. I really enjoyed this, and it was my first podcast because I had heard others had their first podcast. It might be then a way that some topics that didn't get discussed, maybe revisit them and maybe actually, identify them and uh, and create a space where we could talk through some specific topics in more depth and actually have some set itinerary as such, something like that.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I appreciate that feedback. That's feedback I've gotten from a few other guests. And my response to that is, yeah, let's like totally do that. You know what I'm saying? You know, every guest I have, I feel is invited to come back on the show. I have not had any negative experiences. I've enjoyed every conversation I've had in different ways. So anyone, who's listening and, anyone who's not on the show, there's really no requirement to come on other than to be passionate about something. So anyone who's never come on, feel free to DM me if you want to come on. And if you've been on, yeah, definitely feel free to tell me you want to plan another episode. And if you want to have it structured or more structured, I'll probably just keep it in the same talking about life podcast, whatever with the episodes kind of thing. Just because for me, it's like I get lost when I places, but
Yeah,
I have no issue with that. I have no issues with in the same vein, just having a different style for some of them, and it's just this person talking about life part two and whatever. We have a specific focus. I love it. I love the idea of it, and whenever you want to come back for a part two, just let me know and we'll schedule it as soon or as far out as you want to put it, a week, a month, whatever you want to.
yeah,
Like I said, I'm
yeah,
leave now, so for the next about 30 days or so, my schedule is like, I have to take care of the baby, but it's like very easy to just say, okay, it's we'll do the schedule. You do this hour, I do this hour with my wife. So
yeah.
feel free to let me know when you want to come back.
Cool,
We're
100%.
we're slightly over. Any last words? I always give people like if you want a mic drop statement. I don't care if we run like a couple minutes or it's fine, but we'll close out. Any last words?
No, look, just appreciation, and just giving love and good thoughts to everybody out there, and I look forward to uh, maybe at some point, yeah, connecting with more and more people as we go on this journey. But that's it. Just happy that we could have a bit of an open chat. It's kind of a good thing. So yeah, thanks thanks for the invite.
You're welcome. And yeah, like I said, like there really are no rules. I want to provide value. I want to be cooperative. So however you want to do it. If you want to tell me a topic, you want to come up with a list of questions, you want to send me a list of like different topics, and I'll come up with, different questions for different topics. If you want to send me questions you want me to ask or go through, I have no problem with that either. So we'll do whatever we end up deciding. Everyone
Yep.
who's listening, look forward to that episode. It will be coming at some point. We'll get that on the calendar. I always like to close out. I don't know if you know Afakasi or Afakasi brand on Twitter. He does a space called The Barbershop, and he puts out this message that you are loved. If you haven't heard it today, you are loved. Just a positive note to close out on. Feel free to check his pages out and listen to his space. But the universe is full of love. The universe is made of energy. The way I look at it on some levels is E equals MC squared. Everything, which is energy equals mass times the speed of light in a vacuum squared. Uh, Little scientific, which means anything that has mass can be converted into a unit of energy, which means basically everything has mass except some theoretical particles. So everything is energy on a scientific level. So it's a little science to the spirituality because I like to connect the two, ponder from all angles. Um, yeah, the universe is energy. I believe that energy is love. You are love itself, and if you haven't heard it today, you are loved. Peace out. Thank you for listening to the Talking About Life podcast.
Take